Welcome to Paals. It's Prof Anyanwu's anatomy lecture series. In this place, our goal is to make anatomy simple. If you are just joining us or you have not subscribed, we would like you to subscribe now and be part of this amazing anatomy family where we make anatomy simple. This is the part 2 in our series of lectures on the gross anatomy of the hand. So let's go to class. In this section, we will discuss the intrinsic muscles of the hand. These are the intrinsic muscles of the hand. The intrinsic muscles of the hand are muscles that are seen in the hand that are picking origin and also giving their insertion within the region of the hand. Their function is to enable gripping and fine-scaled movement in the hand. We have a total of 20 of them. We have the Thenar muscles, the Adductor of the thumb, we have the Hypothenar muscles, we have the Palmaris brevis, we have 4 Lumbrical muscles, 4 Palmar Interossei, and then 4 Dorsal Interossei. We will look at their innervation. All the intrinsic muscles are innervated by either the ulnar nerve or the median nerve. The deep branch of ulnar nerve will innervate all the muscles except for the 3 Thenar muscles and 2 lateral lumbrical muscles, which are innervated by median nerve. Also, the intrinsic muscles are predominantly innervated by spinal cord segment T1 with contribution from the C8. This table summarizes the innervation of the intrinsic muscles of the hand. We have ulnar nerve. Ulnar nerve will terminate by giving out 2 branches. We have the superficial palmar branch and the deep palmar branch. The ulnar nerve will supply 15 out of the 20 muscles in the hand, that's the intrinsic muscle of the hand, while the median nerve will supply the remaining 5. Out of the 15 muscles that will be supplied by the ulnar nerve, superficial palmar branch will supply only 1 of them, and the rest 14 muscles will be supplied by the deep branch of the ulnar nerve. And these muscles are the Adductor pollicis, Hypothenar muscles, the Interossei, and then the medial 2 lumbricals. For the median nerve, we have the mnemonic loaf to help us recall the muscles that are innervated by it. Now we have the L here stands for the lateral 2 lumbricals, which are supplied by the median nerve, and then the rest are muscles in the Thenar eminence, which are the Abductor pollicis brevis, Flexor pollicis brevis, and Opponens pollicis. We'll start with the Palmaris brevis. Here again is the Palmaris brevis. Recall that we said it is a subcutaneous muscle that is found on the medial side of the proximal part of the palm. And for its origin, it picks origin from 1, the Flexor retinaculum, and 2, the Palmar aponeurosis. It also has subcutaneous insertion, and this is at the skin along the medial border of the hand. As we noted in the slide we just saw, the innervation is from the superficial branch of the ulnar nerve. The action is to enable gripping by making the hypothenar eminence more prominent and by wrinkling the skin over it. Look at the Thenar muscles. This is the Thenar eminence, and these are muscles that are responsible for movement of the thumb. These muscles are made up of 3 different muscles, and these muscles are 1, the Opponens pollicis, 2, the Flexor pollicis brevis, 3, the Abductor pollicis brevis. These 3 muscles give this prominence at the base of the thumb, which we said is called the Thenar eminence. Now look at the different muscles of the thenar. We start with the deepest. Here in this diagram, this is the lateral side, here is the medial side. Now, the collection of three muscles here are the thenar muscles. This has been able for us to be able to see the opponent's pollicis. Also, we've seen the cut edge of the flexor pollicis brevis to enable us to see the inner lining opponent's pollicis. So opponent's pollicis is actually the largest of the thenar muscles, and as we said, it lies deep to the two structures. Now look at the origin. We'll look at this other diagram to enable us appreciate the origin. Remember here, for this diagram, here is the medial side of it, and then here is the lateral side of it. Now the origin is from the tubercle of the trapezium. If you can recall, here is a scaphoid, and then this is trapezium. And the structure I'm putting my light on now is a tubercle of the trapezium. It also has additional origin beyond the trapezium, which is from the adjacent flexor retinaculum. So we have, this is part of the flexor retinaculum. So from the lateral side, we see origin from the tubercle of the trapezium and then the flexor retinaculum. This muscle has its insertion on the lateral half of the anterior surface of the first metacarpal bone. So it picks origin from the carpal bones and partly the flexor retinaculum, and then it starts on the base of the first metacarpal. The action of the opponent's pollicis is to rotate and flex metacarpal 1 on the trapezium. This will lead to bringing of the part of the thumb into a position facing the part of the finger, a condition known as opposition, and this is opposition. The next thenar muscle we'll consider is the abductor pollicis brevis. Remember, we're still looking at the thumb. We have seen the inner muscle, which is said is the opponent's pollicis. We now want to look at the outer ones that cover them. There are two that cover them. On the lateral side here, we are seeing the abductor pollicis brevis. Then on the inner part here, we'll be seeing the flexor pollicis brevis. So here is the abductor pollicis brevis. Cut at this point, it is covering the opponent's pollicis. Its origin is from the tubercle of the scaphoid, sharing the same origin with the opponent's pollicis. Here, it picks origin from the tubercle of the trapezium, and also from the scaphoid, tubercle of the scaphoid, and in addition, the flexor retinaculum. For the opponent's pollicis, we said the origin was from the tubercle of the trapezium and the flexor retinaculum. For this abductor that is more proximal than the rest of the muscles, we are seeing extension of its attachment to the tubercle of scaphoid, the tubercle of trapezium, and the adjacent flexor retinaculum. Its insertion is on the lateral side of the base of the proximal phalanx. Remember, the opponent's pollicis inserted at the level of the metacarpal 1. The abductor pollicis is having a more distal insertion, and this is at the base of the proximal phalanx. So here is the metacarpal, where we saw the insertion of the opponent's pollicis. Here is the base of the proximal phalanx for the attachment of the abductor pollicis brevis. It also is inserted into the extensor hood. The action of the abductor pollicis is to abduct the thumb, principally at the metacarpophalangeal joint. Where is metacarpophalangeal joint? This is the joint between the metacarpal here and then the proximal phalanx here, which is here. So this is the metacarpophalangeal joint. So here is the cut edge of flexor pollicis brevis, and this is the distal part of the muscle. This muscle also is part of the two muscles that cover the opponent pollicis here. So the abductor pollicis brevis is on the lateral side, and the flexor pollicis brevis is seen on the medial side. Both of them will cover the opponent's pollicis on the inner side. So this muscle, flexor pollicis brevis, will pick origin from the tubercle of the trapezium, that's the tubercle of the trapezium here, and also on the adjacent flexor retinaculum. In this diagram, we are seeing the flexor retinaculum, we are seeing the trapezium, so we are seeing the 2 points of origin, flexor retinaculum, tubercle of the trapezium, and then here we are seeing insertion at the base of the proximal phalanx of the thumb. So both the flexor pollicis brevis and opponent's pollicis are having the same points of origin. The insertion is on the lateral side of the base of the proximal phalanx of the thumb. So the flexor pollicis brevis inserted more distally than the opponent's pollicis. The tendon of the flexor pollicis brevis usually has a sesamoid bone attached to it. The action is to flex the thumb at the metacarpal phalangeal joint. Now, innervation, as we already know, is from the recurrent branch of the median nerve. We have this muscle that adducts the thumb. In the thenar muscle, we saw the abductor, we saw the flexor, and we saw the one that does opposition, that's the opponent's pollicis. We have this muscle, though not part of the thenar muscles, but its function is to adduct the thumb. This muscle is called the adductor pollicis. Here is the adductor pollicis. What the adductor pollicis does is to adduct the thumb, while the abductor pollicis abducts the thumb. This muscle has two heads. Here is the adductor pollicis. Now these are the two heads. This is one head, this is another head. Now we have the oblique head. Here is the oblique head, and we also have the transverse head. Between the oblique head and the transverse head, we have this space, which is for the passage of the radial artery. Now for the origin, this oblique head picks origin from 1, the capitate here, and then 2, the basis of the second, this is the second metacarpal bone, and then this is the third metacarpal bone. So these 3 bony landmarks will give origin to the oblique head of the adductor pollicis. 1 here is the second metacarpal, 2 here is the third metacarpal, and 3 here is the capitate. Here is the transverse head of adductor pollicis. Its origin is from the third metacarpal. Here is the third metacarpal. Now the muscle is inserted on the medial side of the base of the proximal phalanx of the thumb, and this is the proximal phalanx, this is the base, and this is the point of insertion. The innervation of adductor pollicis is through the ulnar nerve, and like the name suggests, the action is adduction. It adducts the thumb towards the digits, the rest of the digits. This slide will summarize the various movements exhibited by the thumb. We will start with the movement here, abduction. So abduction of the thumb is moving the thumb in a perpendicular way away from the plane of the rest of the fingers. And bringing the thumb back to lie in the same plane is called adduction. So this is abduction, and then returning the thumb back on the same plane is adduction. Now, abduction and adduction, they occur in a perpendicular plane between the thumb and the rest of the palm. We come to the movement of extension. Extension is the movement of the thumb away from the rest of the fingers in the same plane. This is extension. The difference between extension and abduction is the thumb is moved away in the same plane as the rest of the fingers, but in abduction, the thumb is moved away in a perpendicular direction to the palm. So that's the difference. Movement here is abduction. Movement away on the same plane is extension. And the reverse movement is flexion. Now, opposition is the ability of the first metacarpal to rotate on the trapezium so that the thumb and the tip of the little finger are in contact, as we can see in this illustration. This movement is called opposition, and the reverse is called reposition. Now we have looked at the Thenar muscles, and we have looked at adductor pollicis. We will go to the Hypothenar muscles. The Thenar group of muscles are responsible for the movement of the thumb. The Hypothenar muscles are responsible for the movement of the little finger. They are also made up of 3 muscles. What are these muscles? We have the Opponens digiti minimi, Abductor digiti minimi, and Flexor digiti minimi. They are actually bear similar names with the thumb. So here we are seeing the Thenar muscles on the medial side of the palm, proximal to the little finger. Now in this diagram, here is the lateral side and here is the medial side. And these are the Hypothenar muscles. Now these muscles will form a swelling that we call the Hypothenar eminence. We'll start with Abductor digiti minimi. Here is Abductor digiti minimi. We will see it covering the Opponens digiti minimi, just as we noted in Opponens pollicis, where the Abductor pollicis brevis also covered the Opponens pollicis. Here we are seeing the Abductor digiti minimi also covering the Opponens digiti minimi, which is seen inside. Now for the origin, it will be picking origin from the pisiform bone proximally, the pisohamate ligament, and the tendon of flexor carpi ulnaris. These are all here. This is the tendon of flexor carpi ulnaris, and we are seeing the bone here that we'll be seeing here, which is the pisiform. And then the connection between the pisiform and the hamate is via a ligament. And the name of this ligament is pisohamate ligament. So we have for origin, we have pisiform, pisohamate ligament, and the tendon of flexor carpi ulnaris. For its insertion, we'll be looking at the medial side of the base of the proximal phalanx of the little finger, and by way of extension into the extensor hood, that is the extensor expansion at the dorsum of the hand. So the insertion of this abductor digiti minimi is on the proximal phalanx. This is the proximal phalanx. It inserts on the medial side of the base of the proximal phalanx of the little finger. Here we are seeing the proximal phalanx, and then it inserts on this medial side around the base of this proximal phalanx. From its name, the main function of this muscle is abduction of the little finger. It abducts the little finger. We'll get to the next muscle, which is the Opponens digiti minimi. We are seeing Opponens digiti minimi being located deep to the other two hypothenar muscles, just as we also noted the Opponens pollicis being located deep to both Abductor pollicis brevis and the Flexor pollicis brevis. The same thing is also seen here. So in this chart, we'll be seeing the deeply placed Opponens digiti minimi. The origin also is from the hook of the hamate and from the adjacent flexor retinaculum. Here is the flexor retinaculum, and then we know that here, this is the hamate bone, and then here is the hook of hamate. Now, insertion is medial margin of the palmar surface of the fifth metacarpal. We said that its base is penetrated by deep branches of the ulnar nerve and ulnar artery. As the name suggests, Opponens digiti minimi rotates the fifth metacarpal toward the palm. The last muscle in the hypothenar group is the flexor digiti minimi brevis. The flexor digiti minimi brevis lies lateral to the abductor digiti. Here is the flexor digiti minimi brevis. Its origin is from the hook of hamate and the adjacent flexor retinaculum, and then insertion is also with the abductor digiti minimi muscle, and this is into the medial side of the base of the proximal phalange of the little finger. The action is flexion of the little finger at the metacarpophalangeal joint. The lumbricals, like their name implies, are worm-like muscles that are also seen in the hand. These muscles are 4 in number. Their origin is from the tendons of the flexor digitorum profundus as it runs through the palm. Now we have 2 medial and 2 lateral parts. Here are the lumbricals. These muscles here are the lumbricals, and these are the long flexor tendons of the flexor digitorum profundus. So these muscles pick origin from these tendons and move distally to insert at various points of the phalanges. Now the medial 2 are bipinnate. Now these are the medial 2, and the lateral 2 are unipinnate, this one-sided. So these are the bipinnate, and then here are the unipinnate ones on the lateral sides. This is the lateral side, and then each of the lumbricals will pass to the lateral side of the finger and then will insert into the extensor expansion from the dorsum of the hand. This table actually summarizes the lumbricals, origin tendons of flexor digitorum profundus, insertion at the extensor expansion of the medial 4 fingers, and then nerve supply. For the lateral 2, the nerve supply comes from medial nerve, and from the medial 2, the nerve supply is from the deep branch of the ulnar nerve. Now for the action of the lumbricals, we have, these are the lumbricals. Now these muscles do 2 actions in 2 joints. The first joint is the action at the metacarpophalangeal joint, and the 2 IP joints, proximal and distal. Now the actions are different in these 2 sets of joints, and this action is flexion and extension. It works alongside the interossei muscles in these actions. At the level of the metacarpophalangeal joint, these muscles will bring about flexion, and at the levels of the interphalangeal joints, these muscles will bring about extension. So it puts the hand in this sit in this posture and also this posture. Sometimes some persons refer it as a writing posture, and then these other hands refer it as the posture for the snake that's about to strike. Anyone that helps you to remember it, just know that the function of the lumbricals and interossei at the metaphalangeal joint is to flex, and then at the IP joint is to extend. We'll look at the next level of muscle, and these are the interossei muscles. The interossei muscles are 8 in number. They are found between the metacarpal bones. And these muscles are arranged in 2 layers. The superficial layer that is closer to the palm, called the palmar interossei, and the deep layer that is closer to the dorsum, called the dorsal interossei. Here are the palmar interossei in this illustration. These are the palmar interossei muscles. Now these are the dorsal interossei muscles. The innervation of these muscles, both the palmar interossei and the dorsal interossei, is via the deep branch of ulnar nerve. Now the palmar interossei here will adduct the digits, and we have this mnemonic that will help aid the adduction, palmar interossei. So we use PAD, P-A-D, which is palmar interossei adduct, PAD. Now for this dorsal interossei, the dorsal interossei will abduct. Now abduction is moving these fingers away from the median plane here. This is the median plane. So this action of moving the fingers away from the median plane is abduction. And this is done by the dorsal interossei. And because the dorsal interossei abduct, we use the mnemonic DAB, D-A-B. The palmar interossei adduct. This is adduction, moving the fingers closer to the midline. Because the palmar interossei adduct, we use the word pad. These interossei muscles, as we also noted in the previous slides, alongside the lumbrical muscles, are involved in movements of flexion and extension at metaphalangeal joint, that's flexion, and then interphalangeal joint, that's extension. We'll take the dorsal interossei in more detail. These again are the dorsal interossei. These muscles are the most deeply located of all the muscles in the hand, intrinsic muscles of the hand. As we noted earlier, there are 4 of them, and 4 of them are all bipinnate. They are found between the metacarpal bones and attached to the shaft of the adjacent metacarpal bones. Now, each muscle inserts both into the base of the proximal phalanx and into the extensor expansion of its related digit. This is the first interossei. We will see the insertion at the base of the proximal phalanx and also its insertion into the extensor expansion. Now the tendons of the dorsal interossei will pass deep to the transverse metacarpal ligaments. These are the transverse metacarpal ligaments. These are transverse metacarpal ligaments. We see the tendons passing deep to them, running to the base of the corresponding proximal phalanx for its insertion. Now here, if we start with the first dorsal interossei, it is the largest and it will insert into the lateral side of the index finger. Here is the first and the largest. Now the second here and the second here and the third here will insert into the lateral and medial sides respectively. Now this is the second inserting into the lateral side of the middle finger, and then this is the third inserting into the medial side of the middle finger. Then finally here, the fourth dorsal interossei will be seen inserting into the medial side of the ring finger. Now the middle finger can abduct either medially or laterally with respect to the long axis in the middle finger, and the consequently has a dorsal interossei muscle on each side. We have the dorsal interossei here and the dorsal interossei there. So the middle finger can move either to the right or to the left. The thumb here and the little finger all have their own abductors in the thenar and hypothenar muscles respectively, and therefore they do not need to have the dorsal interossei. Now we will see the radial artery passing between the two heads of the first dorsal interossei. This is the first dorsal interossei, and we're seeing the radial artery passing between the two heads of this first dorsal interossei. We'll now look at the palmar interossei. These muscles will lie anterior to the dorsal interossei and are 4 in number. They are numbered 1 to 4 from lateral to medial. The first palmar interosseous muscle will originate from the medial side of the palmar aspect of the metacarpal 1, and here is the first interossei, and this is the first metacarpal, and this is the first palmar interossei originating from its anterior surface, and will move distally to insert into both the base of the proximal phalanx of the thumb and into the extensor hood. So this is the area of origin, and it will move from this area of origin in the metacarpal to the base of the proximal phalanx of thumb and then the extensor expansion. Now here is the second palmar interossei. This also will pick origin from the medial surface of the second metacarpal here, and will insert into the medial side of the dorsal expansion of the index finger. This is the insertion towards the extensor expansion at the dorsal of the hand. Now here we have the third and the fourth palmar interossei that will also originate from the lateral sides. We can see the origin from the lateral sides of the metacarpals 4 and 5, and they will go ahead and insert into the lateral aspect of the respective extensor expansions. That is what we're seeing here. The palmar interossei also, like the tendons of the dorsal interossei, will pass dorsal to the deep transverse metacarpal ligament, and this once again at the deep transverse metacarpal ligament, and we're also seeing the palmar interossei, like the dorsal interossei, passing deep to this transverse metacarpal ligament. The palmar interossei will adduct the thumb, index finger, ring, and little finger. The only finger exempted is the middle finger that does not have attachment of the palmar interossei. The movement is at the metacarpophalangeal joint. Because the muscles insert into the dorsal hoods, this palmar interossei also will enable flexion and extension movement of the digits. This is where we end this part of the lecture. If you have questions, comments, or suggestions, please drop them in the comment section. If you consider this material helpful, we encourage you to subscribe, like the video, and share it to your friends, that it will also be helpful too. And together, we will build a unique anatomy family where we make anatomy simple. See you in my next video, and bye for now.